list of authors that we've got in there. Not to be just as an example list, so we can talk about that a little bit. Yay! How you doing, Gareth? I feel like I would say long time no talk, but it's been, what, about an hour?
It's never long since the last one.
Never long. I love this imagery, by the way. Thank you. I love the creepiness. I still have my skull up back here. So, oh, maybe I should bring her front and center. I don't know where to set her so she can be seen. It's a girl, obviously.
She put it on like a green pole in front of a green screen, so it looks like it's floating.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. Floating skulls. I was so thankful that all of the horror course activity and the launching of our horror genre came around this creepy came around Halloween time, so I could get some great props for my office. Oh, this is not okay. When I'm not doing horror related activities, I do tuck them away a little bit. So, all right. How's everybody doing? Are we getting... Oh, we have viewers in all. So today we are live streaming through our OG AutoCrit author community, as well as our AutoCrit YouTube channel and our newer NaNoWriMo with AutoCrit Facebook group. So we've tried to kind of keep folks who want to really dig in and focus on Nano, give them a nice safe space that's really focused on achieving that 50,000 word count. And then we'll be streaming our Nano activities through that group. So everybody's able to take in what they want and not get overwhelmed with all the other goodness that's happening in our other channels. Hey, Alexis, good to see you out there. Hi. Oh, terrific. So if you're joining us, come on in, have a seat, a virtual seat, and let us know you're here. Hey, Celissa. Oh, it's awful to have an office that's upstairs, far away from where I do my actual reading, which is downstairs. I read mostly right before bed to help me wind down, which has been a huge fail lately because I have so many good books in progress. But Celissa, I actually have Emerald Isle, is it, in my queue, ready to go. So I'm excited to read Celissa's book. Hi. So, and I was going to show it, and then I realized it's downstairs physically in the queue. Looks like we have more people joining. Hey everybody. Hey Alexis.
Hello.
Alexis is in Missouri. Hey April. Girl, you are right around the corner from me. We'll talk later. I didn't realize you were so near. Steve is here. Southern California. Oh, I always love to see Celissa say hi because she's in Hawaii and it makes me dreamy. Like, wish I was in Hawaii. How about you, Gareth? Hawaii doesn't seem like a place to go.
It's too hot for me. I'm used to the British nothing weather.
Well, you would have been so pleased here. It's been raining for 40 days and 40 nights. I was ready to build my ark, but
that would be delightful.
Today I was like, man, I wish I could share. I was so thrilled to see the sun come out today. I'm not going to say it too loud in case I jinx myself. So fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We have such great news for everybody today. Hi, it's Beth from AutoCrit, and I'm here with Gareth.
Hello.
And as you can probably surmise by, well, one, the title of this live stream, but also Gareth's new and improved AutoCrit logo, which I adore. I adore. It's so dark and so Gareth. We have a tremendously exciting announcement. It's been live in the system for a while, so a lot of people have already noticed it. But as a carry on from our last week's deep dive live about genres, we have introduced a new genre for our AutoCrit unique genre comparison feature, and that genre is horror. I'm super excited. I know Gareth is too.
It had to be in October. It's like my Christmas is when I get to use the logo and everything.
I love it. And honestly, it just could not have come at a better time. I think everybody needs a bit of a break, and pouring out some of the weirdness in the world into a work of horrific fiction, it has to be so cathartic. So for those who don't partake in horror year round, October is a terrific time for that. So a couple of quick announcements before I hand it over to our resident horror expert, Gareth, to tell us all about our new genre comparison with horror. If you didn't catch last week's Deep Dive Live on genre, we talk about why they're important and how to select them, and kind of what it means to be to compare your work to one genre versus another genre. So the different kinds of results and feels you might get from that. So if you haven't watched that, we definitely encourage you to do that. It's available on YouTube. It's also available in our AutoCrit author community on Facebook. If you are lucky enough to be on the new Facebook layout, I believe it's under a new tab called Media, and then it'll be Media, and then you go to either photos or videos. So just check out the videos part and jump in there, but don't do it now. Do it after this live stream. And another announcement for our AutoCrit author community members who are participating in this month's Destination Unknown. This morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, The Twist was launched. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a post in the community, but I know it's a very busy community, so we're going to make sure we tag that to the top. And then in a couple hours, I have also a little video that's going to post that is, well, basically just me saying, here's the twist. It is to incorporate something dark or scary or spooky into your story in honor of not just Halloween, not just Gareth's favorite month of the year, but launching our horror genre and our participants in the horror course. That would be a fun little twist to add to Destination Unknown. So check that out if you're doing the challenge in the AutoCrit author community, and look for a little video by me to be posted in about 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. I know everybody's on the edge of their seat to be like, oh, let's see Beth again on video. That's it for announcements, I think. Did I miss anything, Gareth?
No, I think that's it. It's like for the Destination Unknown, you don't have to change everything, but get something spooky in there for October.
Just a little something. It can just be a little bit of a mention. Maybe your character sees maybe something spooky and then just moves on. So
floating skull on a green screen.
Floating skulls they always work. They're never not good. So, and if you're not familiar with Destination Unknown, this is a writing kind of challenge, an independent challenge that runs in our community every month, and it has 3 parts. 1, the beginning. We actually give you an opening sentence that you have to use. 2, a week later, you get an unexpected twist, and that could be anything from incorporate a spooky element to, what did we do last time, Gareth, on the other?
Last time, I believe it was completely eliminate repetition, was it?
Oh, yes, right? So it could be something that AutoCrit can help you with. It can be something just to flex your creative muscles, but a bit of a twist so you don't get too complacent. It's a short story, so no more than, what did we say, 5,000 words?
By 5,000 words, I think is reasonable.
It's very flexible. And then the third part of the challenge is we also give you in week 3 the closing sentence. And let me tell you, that is where the creativity really shines through, because sometimes it can be a really tricky last sentence and you just have to make it work, and you may have to rewrite a good part of your story, but it's all about just getting into that habit of writing and getting people getting used to sitting down each day, taking that prompt, taking that idea and just fleshing it out and getting words on the page. And then of course, editing with AutoCrit, especially around the twist. We love that. So if you're interested, check it out. It runs constantly in our AutoCrit author community. And with that, I'm going to shut up. I know it's hard to believe. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to hand it over to Gareth, who is going to tell us all about the new horror genre in AutoCrit, and you let me.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can see my screen there, I do have some examples loaded up. So one thing just to clear with everybody watching on whichever group you're in or on YouTube, do we have any AutoCrit newbies around who don't quite know what they're looking at? Feel free to type a comment in there and let us know if it's also it's too confusing.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack within AutoCrit. So if you're new, if you have questions, just put it in the chat window and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If you have questions about horror in particular, absolutely. And we also have some great kind of live product demos that are recorded. Well, then they're not live. Recordings of product demos we can dig into as well. So we are happy to help and get you some context around what you're going to see.
We've got a newbie.
Hey, newbie. Love it.
Get the newbie. The real thing about this and why we kind of celebrate the genre being added, well, it's a lot of work on our end to get the data in there and all tuned up and crunched and the way it needs to be to actually work with the system. But AutoCrit is the only editing suite for your novels on the planet, really, that goes as deep as this does. We are able to, with the AI and the systems that we use, split your editing guidance up into specific genres and individual authors. So we can take basically every book that an author has written, put it in the system, crunch all the data, and build a kind of AI or digital profile for when you're editing. So the system can check your use of language versus their use of language in what we would determine would be one of their manuscripts. Trying to just kind of put it in layman's terms. So when you're editing, if you want that person as your guide, quote unquote, they can be kind of standing over your shoulder as you do the editing and saying, "Oh, I wouldn't write it like that." That's kind of what we're going for. And in this case, being October, we have finally, it's been in the works for a long time, added the horror genre. Which includes a massive database of authors. And alongside the entire genre, we've also added a selection of kind of featured authors that we picked out there that are generally big names from across time inside the horror genre. So I'm going to walk you through a few of those in this stream so you can see kind of the summary scores that we're working with and how the recommendations change. As Beth mentioned earlier, we did a big stream on genre recently where we kind of dug into that a good bit deeper as what are genres, why does it matter, the language you're using, but it really does. It kind of defines what you're writing. Is based the effect that it's having on your reader is based on the language you're using, quite frankly, and little more is kind of evident of that than the horror genre, which tends to be, I guess, not so much hyperbolic, but certainly pushes things further than some others. I guess horror and romance are probably two standouts there for the kind of words that they use to create the effect that they're after. So on your screen there, yes, write first, then edit. see it in the comments there.
Yes, that is tremendously helpful advice for Charles. Absolutely, get the words on the page and then we'll edit. But in the meantime, always hang out with us in the author community and in the nano community. Especially if you're doing nano, jump over into our nano community. We have some amazing interviews and events coming up for that. So we've been working hard on that today. So it's front of mind and some really fun write-ins coming. We've not done one of those yet. So we're excited. So yeah. Oh, write first, then edit. You can't edit an empty page.
Stay involved, but keep writing. Yeah, you can't edit an empty page. I know people that do use AutoCrit will use the chapter by chapter option as well. We do have that where if you decide that you want to write a chapter and then clean that chapter up before you move on so you don't get so exhausted, then by all means jump in there. But I think if you're kind of in the flow and just trying to get that manuscript out, then pound the keyboard, get it done, and then edit till you can't edit no more. So if my screen is moving about here, this first book that I have loaded up is from one of our featured authors that we have in there called Adam Nevill. Hands up any Adam Nevill fans out there. I have my hand up.
Me too.
His
so creepy. I love it.
Yeah, if you're not so sure about stuff he's done, this book is Last Days, which is fantastic to my mind. His book, The Ritual, was also adapted into a movie, which I think is on Netflix, probably in the US as well.
Really?
Definitely worth checking out. The film, while it doesn't stick entirely to the book, is an excellent horror film. It's a really good adaptation, even though it strays a little bit, but definitely worth watching. So I've run a summary report here just under the general fiction comparison for last days. The score comes in at 79.36. Now, if any of you out there are kind of eagle-eyed, quick plug for our blog. We run a series called What's the Score? We sometimes do them live here on our streams. And we also do written versions that are on the blog. And we have a written version for last days. And the initial summary score comes in a little higher. It's just because I re-imported the text, the text, and didn't clean it up quite as much as I did for the written version. So it only went up to I think the initial score in the written one is like 80.06 or something. So it's not a major difference here, but just so we can see the shift. So this summary score, 79.36. The summary score is a very basic guide to whether you're moving in the right direction. If you go in and make changes, you want your summary score to climb slightly. It doesn't have to be a giant leap, but it's essentially out of a 100% match to what you would expect to see in this case, just general fiction means like all books ever written, novel of a similar length to yours. So you would never expect to get to 100. Don't try to get 100 or you will drive yourself insane. Anything above, I think above 70, giving age, you'll see some as we go further here, depending on how old they are, because writing styles, a kind of cultural or accepted writing styles change throughout the decades. Is generally a good result. So just keep moving up as high as you can. But we always say, get to the point where your score is the highest you've seen it, but you're not starting to dislike your own work, because that's the last thing you want to be told, is to strip all these things out. So that's 79.36. Now, if I click here and just change the genre, let me just swap it over to our brand new horror. Since these, I have a series of quite large manuscripts all loaded up here, so running the reports might take a few moments.
Yeah, it's doing the full analysis behind the scenes. So yeah, it might take a few seconds. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, I believe I see The Ritual in Netflix in the US. So, as is my current project, I am loading that up to my playlist of horror films for the month of October. If you guys have any great suggestions for me, pop them in the comments. Would love to add some more to my list.
Yeah, me too. Share away. So the summary report is completed with horror, and we've made a big old leap to 84.51.
Wow.
In terms of points, that is actually quite significant. A good 5-point jump, say, is something to be super proud of if you see that happen. It doesn't happen all the time, and I will explain that with another book as we go forward. But that's last day, so you can see the difference between just comparing to general fiction across the board and really dialing in on I'm writing a horror novel. And I want to have language that matches that kind of style. Of course, individual authors have their own style. This is why it's so difficult to kind of get the information, the data all together. This book here is The Rising by Brian Keene. This is another of our featured authors that's been added alongside the genre. So let me show you here. While you can compare to the actual genre itself, if I take genres under fiction, there's horror right there. You can also go to authors, and there's Brian Keene. So we have his bibliography all built in and crunched. The score here for The Rising comes in at a really healthy 84.47 to begin with. And I think it's kind of reflective of modern writing, because Brian Keene is an author whose writing is generally really clean and crisp, and you can guess really well at it. There's very, very little fluff on the pages with his work.
Oh, nice.
One of his books that I would really recommend reading for that kind of perspective is Terminal. Even if you're not a horror fan, because it's not exactly a horror novel, it's more a kind of dark fantasy, modern dark fantasy about a guy who decides to rob a bank. And when you're reading that, it is so lean that the pace is through the roof the entire time, and it's almost like a screenplay. You can see the movie in your head as you're reading it.
Oh, wow. I love that. And this is why I can't sleep at night, Gareth. Thank you. I can't put books down.
I'll read Terminal. It's not so much scary as it is just kind of, I guess, slightly depressing with how it goes. It's just a very dark tale. Now, if we switch to Rising, so we have 84.47. And let's just go for genres and horror. And this one, I believe, whenever this runs and comes through, is that the score does not change all that much. There are reasons for that. We'll let the hamster print away. There we go. So 85.21. We have a little bit of a bump up there. And this is really just because whenever you're in that, you get to those higher areas, it becomes more and more difficult just by the very nature that we're working with a common language. You know, there's your English books. There's only so many words in a dictionary. So it gets harder to push it up when you're up in those upper areas with genre. But as long as you're bumping up, you're generally in a good position. So don't be too frightened if like you've written something and you're like, oh, my general is this, but my horror or my sci-fi is only, 2 points more. It's a good thing.
Any movement up is quite good, right?
Yeah, you're always going in the right direction. We're going to jump back in time a little. Anybody out there name the author of The Rats? Beth?
Graham Masterson?
No.
That's my best guess. Can I phone a friend? Is it Ramsey Campbell?
Ramsey Campbell.
Yes.
But no, it isn't.
Oh, come on. You're the worst.
This is
if I could phone a friend, I would phone you.
This is a classic from 1974. So we're going back a few decades here, and it's James Herbert.
Oh, okay.
Who also wrote The Fog.
I've heard of that one. I haven't heard of The Rats. I mean, generally rats terrify me. Just
stay away from everything to do with them.
It's true. It's the weird naked tail. I think it's just it's not okay.
So even though this is a classic book that's been published and loved by horror fans for decades, you might be a bit shocked to see 79.48. It's like, well, is that not a low score? No, not really. Not in within context. You may see if you check out some of our What's the Scores, we did Stephen King's Pet Sematary, which was also around in the 70s. So again, styles change. You'll probably tend to find, and I'll leave that. I'll get to it at the end. What we'll do is run a comparison on this one. So 79.48. So this is, even though this is a kind of older genre novel, so the core structure is very different to what you would expect today.
I just need you to be cautious when you're calling 1974 old, because I was born in 1973. Carry on.
Hyper modern.
Classic, vintage.
So we get a really nice jump there for The Rats. 82.22. So this is kind of part of the value of what we do in drilling down into the genres, because if you're writing something like The Rats and you're comparing against general fiction, I mean, horror can be a lot different to what you might expect from a standard, your average mass market. Of course, they used to be the kind of kings of mass market paperback, but not quite anymore. But yeah, it can really just give you a better view of what you're doing when you run it, because you might be a little upset looking at like a 78 or a 77, but drill it down into the genre that you're writing, and all of a sudden, you're up over the 80 threshold. Things are looking a lot better. That's kind of what we try to do is just put you in that right perspective and frame. And it's all based on real data, what's working today. I think part of the reason that some of these older novels tend to start off with slightly lower scores is that we're always updating the system and changing and trying to stay in front of trends. What's working, what's publishing, what are people selling today, what's turning budding authors into bestsellers in style and in terms of writing. So we try to stay on front of that, and obviously older styles tend to fall away. But as you can see here, it still stays strong because, as I said, we're working with a language that has finite barriers, essentially.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense.
Staying in the old realm, if anyone cares to guess, again in the chat, The Woods Are Dark. Who wrote that?
I'm gonna steal an answer that came in from the community on the last one and say H.P. Lovecraft.
Incorrect.
But a good guess, right?
Oh yeah, reasonable guess.
Oh, that was very believable. So what was the name of it again, Gareth?
The Woods Are Dark.
The Woods Are Dark. It's both a factual statement and the title of a horror novel. Okay. Do I dare even guess again? Wait, is it one of the ones that I've already guessed?
No, it is not.
Oh. I'm out.
It is Richard Laymon.
Ah. Okay.
This is another older one, 1981. Richard Laymon is kind of known for his books are almost like slasher type novels. Very heavy adult stuff. Lots of kind of psychosexual content and things like that. So he's well known for that kind of thing. And again, being a novel from the early 80s, we're coming in general fiction with a 78.26 summary score. The reason I point out Richard Laymon is because he is in fact one of the authors that we added. So he's there. We've also got Ramsey Campbell, who I will get to next. But let's just check that out for horror.
I love it. And so I see a couple questions coming through the community while we have just a moment here, and we'll ask Gareth to scroll down when we get this new score. Take a peek at that fingerprint on the summary report. If you're wondering where to start with your work, looking at this fingerprint shows you in the 5 major categories that AutoCrit analyzes in total, it gives you the number of indicators found by each of those categories. So and this is where 2 roads diverge in a yellow wood, I need quick wins. I need quick wins under my belt. And so I would go for the one with the smaller number. And I know that some of my colleagues, and Gareth, you may be one, that look for the bigger number and be like, this is the most work, I'm going to dig in there. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I tend to flip between the two, because when I'm giving when I'm giving other people suggestions, I say go for the quick wins, you know, because they make you feel good. But personally, I like to hit it hard to begin with, and then feel like I'm kind of emerging from the night of terror into the sunlight, and clear up the last little remnants at the end.
That's an excellent approach. The other idea here might be some of these are more structural than others. So like pacing and momentum, big structural situations. And then more discrete things like repetition or adverbs can really be picked off word by word. So start with the bigger structural, kind of broader sweeping things like maybe pacing and momentum, and then finish up with something that's a bit of a cherry on top and easy to manipulate, like getting rid of those pesky adverbs.
Yeah, I think the way I would probably approach it is, you tend to find strong writing is the largest, or at least running for the largest in most manuscripts. I would probably, if I were going big time, first off is hit strong writing, and then come in with dialogue, because dialogue is usually it's adverbs in dialogue and your dialogue tags. Let me just highlight it here. So yeah, those 2 reports. And they're quite simple to cover up, even though you might have a large number of indicators. Fixing it is not a real brain busting exercise like it can be for showing versus telling, for example.
Oh yeah.
So it's like focus on dialogue. Within strong writing, it's adverbs and filler words are real good, easy to start with, and generally make up quite a decent bulk of any first draft. So hit those. The repetition I would tend to leave till towards the end, because you're just kind of fixing up things and doing a bit of extra variety towards the end. And pacing is definitely one for the end, when you're kind of beta reading and figuring out where the pacing might be flagging. AutoCrit's really there in terms of pacing to highlight areas where the system thinks the pacing might be slowing down too much. And that's where it's just kind of drawing your attention to saying, hey, you might want to look at this bit while you're doing your read through. Because if you agree and you're like, yeah, for sure, that's slowing things down too much, then you know what to fix. So that's a kind of final departure. Although speaking of which, 17, that's super low. Only 17 indicators on pacing for the woods are dark. So obviously it's rockets along.
Wow.
But as we did the comparison there under horror, we've got a nice jump to 79.25. So we're nearly above 80. And again, that's a good thing as long as you're moving forward. Good stuff. And of course, it's worth pointing out to, I think, everybody who watches these streams and videos, is that 79.25. This is a published book. Of course, it's sat on shelves since 1981, but I'm sure it has never stopped selling the entire time. Richard Laymon is a very well-known name within the horror genre and industry. So, don't think that because you're in the 70s that nothing is any good. It's like, no. You can always go in here and tweak up little bits and pieces, but there are books that have been hugely successful that probably have come in at a lower summary score than yours. So don't get too wrapped up in your score. Think more about your guide and what you can tighten and whether you're happy with the book.
Absolutely.
For the last one, I brought up The Wise Friend, which is by Ramsey Campbell.
Thank you. Guess again. I was out of guess.
Another one that we added this month. So I think in total, we have James Herbert, Richard Laymon, Ramsey Campbell, Brian Keene, and they all join Adam Nevill, Stephen King, Dean Koontz, and Anne Rice as existing authors that are working within the horror genre. We do also have Dan Simmons, who writes kind of horror historical stuff that's strange, and sci-fi and things. So he was added recently. Of course, if you're out there and you don't know already, we add new authors every single month. So there's always someone new coming in. You don't know who it is until we reveal it. And when we add genres, we add some additional authors in there. So there's always new updates coming along. And if there's anybody that you ever want us to add, I mean, by all means, comment, let us know. And we can look into it as long as there's enough data around for them for us to make a profile that works. We can look into that and possibly make it happen for you. So on this last one, I just wanted to use this. The Wise Friend is actually a 2020 novel by Ramsey, who coincidentally is one of the nicest people on the planet. And
have you met him? Do you know him?
Yeah. So I spoke to everybody for the horror course that we're running this month. Ramsey was one of them who was gracious enough to give us a little bit of advice for the extras.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
And this is to indicate the difference in kind of how language affects genre and how things change. So on this particular manuscript, I've run the adverbs report, just looking at it from the context of general fiction. And what AutoCrit will do is check how often you're using all of the adverbs that you are, and how often in a book of same or similar length, just across all novels really, would that be expected to be seen. So you can kind of help trim things down, make it cleaner, leaner, while removing the right stuff, rather than just getting rid of things willy-nilly. I guess that's really how this helps me so much as well. It's just guidance, it puts you on a track. And it's like, look, just go through this. And when you come out the other side, of course, your manuscript's going to be better. From a line editing perspective. So if we look at it here, surely we have 38. It says remove about 32. Simply 24. Remove about 12. So about half of those need to go. If, however, I think, well, I'm writing a horror novel, so I'm going to update my genre and switch it to horror. That's going to be genres, horror. So remember there, we have 32 surely, 12 simply.
I'm writing that down because I can't be trusted to remember. 32 what and what? 12 simplies and 32 Shirleys?
Correct.
Don't call me Shirley. Hey-o.
So what we end up with is 26 surely. So our removal numbers of those have gone down. But for simply, we're up to 15. So without looking at the others, I don't see if any of these changed. Maybe they did. Sometimes they don't, because again, it's a finite toolbox that we're working with in terms of language. So sometimes it just doesn't change. But it shows you how it kind of drills down and understands the difference in word use between different genres and even between different authors. So it really changes up. And it kind of ties into as well one of the things we do that I don't think we'd really plan to talk about today, but for example is the power words. I'll run that on this because I haven't actually looked at it for this manuscript. Let's see if it's surprising. It's where we help you just kind of draw for yourself an emotional map of your story. If you've ever heard of something called a hedonometer, it's kind of similar to that, where through the language that you're using, we can pull out a pie chart of the predominant emotional responses that you're eliciting with the book. And of course, we have fear. Encouragement, although it says encouragement, that's usually language that we would use for something representing adventure, keeping the pace up, and drawing people into mysteries and things like that. So yeah, equal fear and encouragement is very good to see for a horror novel. You might expect in many to see maybe like this much fear taking up all this and then a little bit spread of the rest. But yeah, keeping that one of the higher numbers or the highest number is right on point.
What's the green pie in this one? My screen is far away. Is that greed?
The green one over here is greed.
Interesting. I'm so glad you did this because I was thinking about power words and how they might look different for a horror novel versus, well, obviously something like a romance. But the thing that I'm seeing here, and I think this might be a spoiler for those who are taking our horror course right now, but having fear and something like encouragement really gives your reader a little bit of a break so you don't have that reader fatigue that can kind of set in. It helps draw out the tension. It helps kind of take them on a bit of a roller coaster. So I really like that you pulled this up. And I like his kind of allocation of emotions across those two.
Yeah, and it does really matter because this is the same kind of thing with where we're doing the word comparisons when you're editing between genres and between authors is looking into that data. When we have something like this as well, we can pull this up for you. You can look at it and think, oh, this doesn't look emotionally like how I want my reader to feel, and that's all a product of language. So the words that you're using, they have explicit meanings, but they also carry subconscious weight. And perhaps you're trying to say something and there's an alternative word that could say the same thing but carries a different kind of emotional weight behind it, then swap that and you swap the emotional profile of the passage. People who are doing our horror course are going to get into that a bit later this week. I'll start finding out a bit more about that. Depending on how you describe things and the words you use, you can really change how it makes a reader feel about something.
Absolutely.
That just helps bring that up for you. So that was a little bit of a segue, or a diversion, sorry. But to go back to the word use thing here, I have another section for the wise friend loaded up. This is unnecessary filler words. So I think most of us know what filler words are. You always got to look to get rid of justs and that and even, all these words that tend to just kind of clutter up things and don't really have much of an effect. Except the horror genre is a lot more inviting of them for good reasons. So if we run this report to look for filler words in our manuscript, and we're using it under general fiction, we've got removed about 188 in total. So that might be a good afternoon full of coffee.
And you said horror genre is more forgiving of these. Is that what you mentioned? I got a little Craig popped in on the YouTube comments, and he's in our horror class right now, and he said, "This is great to know. Don't tell the rest of the class you got tips." On the
You think you're prepared?
Fantastic.
So with the horror genre chosen, we go remove about 159. It is one gigantic decrease. We still have the most common culprits showing up. That's just and even. You also, I'm surprised that was managed to skip through, but that's didn't, because it's usually that is like in everything. But the number goes down a ton. A lot of that in the horror genre is well, there's a couple of reasons. One, let's be honest, horror was in its biggest heyday throughout in the times of pulp paperbacks, throughout 70s to maybe mid 90s. So a hell of a lot of data that's gone into this is part of that. And writing styles are different now. It's all about lean and clean. But on the other hand, the genre is also afforded a lot more, breathing space to try to generate atmosphere, to try to really work with pace, because it tries to slow down a lot before hitting you with a kind of sucker punch after being slow for so long. And there's only so much you can do with language to kind of try to do that in longer sentences. So horror is quite forgiving in that regard. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, I understand that you need to get this going. And filler words within horror, I don't want to give too much away if we got people in the course here.
Greg has already sworn he's got it locked up. So
yeah, he's gonna know everything by the time we get on our course live streams. The use of, well, actually no, this is pointed out in one of the Scene Autopsy downloads, so he's probably already read it. That's fine. The horror genre, a lot of the time, good authors in there will tend to make use of words like just. These filler words that are filler elsewhere are used to make things that should be serious seem terribly unserious to terrible effect.
Absolutely.
So it kind of dismisses an awful act and really makes you feel uncomfortable. So they get a lot of play here inside this genre. And what if we...
That just makes so much sense, because we talk about lulling readers into sort of a false sense of safety, perhaps, or a misdirection where somebody's like, oh, it's just a skull. It couldn't possibly be the actual skull of my loved one. Or it's just a Halloween decoration, and then it turns out to be a real skull. This one's not, for the record. But I can see where those filler words do help tone it down and really put your reader kind of like, oh, it's just a pen. It's just whatever this is, cutie. So that I love that is just so apparent when you do the comparison to horror as a genre within AutoCrit. It's fantastic.
So the type of thing you see when you so once you're aware of it and you're looking out for it, you see it all the time. But otherwise, it's just kind of subtly having an effect in there, and you might not even pick up on it, because again, it's a filler word. The reason we remove them is because you skip over them. But in the case of horror, some of the passages and things that you read there wouldn't have half the effect or half the unnerving or even distressing effect it would if that nonchalance were removed. I wanted to say here, because it just came to my mind, we got remove about 59. If we're comparing to the horror genre there, I thought, what if we compare to Ramsey Campbell's actual profile?
Oh, is this where we open the space-time portal, where we compare an author's work to a bigger body of author's work?
Oh, yeah, it says Ramsey section.
Wow, fantastic. So it's so interesting to do this, because you'd think that the score is going to be a 100, and spoiler, it's not going to be a 100.
Nope, sometimes it's not. I often think, although sometimes I think if you put one through and it came in really low, that might be able to tell you which authors are using ghostwriters and not doing their own work.
Ghostwriters, a subtle change may indicate kind of an evolution of their writing style over the years or decades, in the case of very prolific authors. But what did we find here, Gareth?
So now we have remove about 102. So if we compare to Ramsey Campbell distinctly, his profile, we fall somewhere in between the overall genre and general fiction of kind of every book ever. So we're kind of smack in the middle now with Ramsey himself, which is probably a very, very reasonable place to be for someone of his stature. So we have, removed so many. Now we have did that come in? No, it still got a pass.
Yeah.
So we have really, I think really's cropped up. So you can see how it changes, and that's why we try to keep everything, kind of drill down into things while putting as much as we can in there for you, from individual authors to individual genres, just so you can kind of pick a guide, go for what you're aiming for, and stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you a favor? Can you show us the summary of his internal comparison? I'm not sure how to phrase that. Can you show us the summary on this one where we're comparing Ramsey Campbell to himself? That always interests me. So we'll run that. Yes, the overall.
I've not seen this one.
Oh, this is going to be exciting. It's a live stream, guys. You never know what's going to happen. So fantastic. That's going to be really fun. Speaking of comparison to specific genre and to specific authors is a feature of AutoCrit Pro. So if you're not yet a professional level member, definitely give that a try. If you haven't yet done the $1 trial for 14 days of professional, we may be able to hook you up with that as well. So pop into the comments and let us know. But we definitely want you guys to all be able to take advantage of these new author comparisons and the new genre of horror within AutoCrit, and definitely the only platform that brings you this level of detailed comparison. And show us what you got there, Gareth.
We got 82.42. Really good result.
Quite good, yeah.
And if we what's that? Sorry.
He's quite consistent then, it seems.
I like the doubles here. If we check the fingerprint, of course, this novel has 555 pacing ones compared to Richard Laymon's 17. I think it was 17, wasn't it? Although 555 and 888 for dialogue. Excellent. Those are quite funny numbers.
666, come on.
Yeah, it's like, why couldn't you give it 666, Ramsey? Come on. But yeah, no. So that would be, again, if this were your novel, you run that. 82 is a good score, but perhaps with that many dialogue things, is little bits of dialogue you could cut down on in terms of dialogue tags, and something else. So strong writing, 10,000 is quite high. So I would be in here in the strong writing, looking through things like adverbs and especially filler words, seeing where we could pull that number down.
That's excellent. That is very cool, Gareth. Yes, awesome. Thank you, Gareth. That was fun and interesting all at the same time. I may have accidentally learned something. I'm all about accidental learning these days. Make it fun, make it educational, make it interesting. So hopefully you in the audience have found this to be fun, educational, and interesting as well. And remember,
if you get some benefit, that's a happy accident.
Yeah, exactly. But now you are ready to understand the deeper genre comparison of horror, new in AutoCrit Pro, as well as some of our great new horror authors. And I have some great new books and movies to add to my October Horror Fest. That's going to be so fun. It's a personal kind of thing that's just happening here and only for me. So
end up leading you into No Sleep November.
It's man, it's been so interesting to read all these scary books and read all these amazing assignments that we have in the horror course. And I've not slept a wink since I don't know when. So bear with us. But we hope everyone has had a great time today with us here at AutoCrit. Jump back into the platform, check out the new comparisons. And again, if you need to get that $1 14-day trial, we might be able to hook you up with that. But definitely check out our AutoCrit Professional subscription. And let's see, what do we have coming up next, Gareth? The twist is here in the AutoCrit author community for Destination Unknown. So go check that out. And are we here next week, Gareth? I can't remember. My goodness, the days are all blending.
I would have to check the calendar because that's a great question.
It's called Stump Gareth Day here on Deep Dive Live. And I think I just won. So with that, we will sign off. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.